Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone to Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. So thank you so much for joining us today on this version of The Bend. I am particularly excited to have Dr. Tracy Sands with me today because she and I are both so into fear-free and making sure that pets have a great mental experience along with their physical experience in a veterinary hospital. That we are like soul sisters when it comes to fear-free stuff, except she's much more qualified than I am because I am behind on my certification and embarrassingly have to keep going back to the council and saying, can I renew myself? Because I didn't do my certification again. So I'm going to get there. I promise I'm going to get there. But Tracy has a very cool mission. She is her goal is to empower veterinary support staff and to improve mental wellness in the veterinary profession. She's a practice owner. She's a mom. She strongly feels that the way to do this is to normalize conversations about mental health and well-being and incorporate core values into a positive culture. And I'm so with you on those core values. You can't hire to core values if you don't know what they are. And to share the veterinary journeys because it is quite an adventure. As part of her journey, she co-hosts the Vet Med After Hours podcast, and she co-founded the hashtag Vet You Matter campaign. She speaks on topics of staff wellness and improving the client experience. And her secret superpower is that she can take wool right from her own sheep and turn it into a comfy sweater. And before I move to the beach, I might want to solicit that sweater from you because, but down here, I'm looking at my winter clothes going, I really don't need those much anymore. And I haven't been on an airplane since March the 12th, which is really unusual for me. So my winter clothes are gathering dust. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Love it. You're living the good life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. I did just have to go outside and rush inside here because it's going to be 31 tonight. And I'm covering up any plant that's not going to make it. And that's quite a few of them, actually. Yeah.
Well, so I have a cactus behind me, and I'm not sure my cactus is going to make it in my care. So I'm impressed.
One of my good friends called his wife Green Thumb. A brown thumb instead of green thumb. It was brown thumb. Yeah. So Tracy, I know a lot of veterinarians start out, their goal in life is to be a veterinarian. Were you one of those kids?
I was not. And people that know me know that I don't focus a lot on the memories from when I was a kid, unfortunately. But one thing I remember really clearly is saying that I wanted to, so I was an Aggie kid in high school, and saying that I wanted to work with animals, but be anything but a veterinarian. And I told that story on a podcast recently, and my mom, of course, called me and she was like, I know, because I said, I don't know why. And she's like, I know why. You read a book with a gross story in it. I'm still not sure that's true, but I listened to you, Mom. So yeah, I was not that kid. I did have moments. I grew up on a farm, and I remember very specifically at a young age, something didn't go well with a lambing. And I remember saying to myself, I want to be a vet so that this doesn't happen for anybody else. But then I went, kind of full circle for a while, but I've had a circuitous path for sure.
Now, so when you went to college, did you pursue another career, or by that time, had you decided to go to vet school?
I majored in animal science. So I was thinking maybe research, something like that. And I ended up in a job. VCA was relatively new then, and I ended up in a job there with multiple specialties and found myself really, I think I learned really early on a lot of the ins and outs of burnout because they had 24-hour care and the interns did the overnight shifts by themselves and I worked with them. But it didn't, I think seeing the passion that a lot of those team members had, and there were a few technicians in general that were incredibly positive, and I learned a lot from them. I just love learning, and there's just so much, we had all different specialties, so you could learn all the time. So that's where I fell in love with it. And then somebody, actually my career counselor said, you can't get into vet school. And, that was enough to just say, watch me try. And here I am. But the fun thing about my path is that I was hardcore food animal medicine. I was going to be a dairy cattle vet, a sheep vet, and nothing else. And fast forward 20 some years and I own a boutique style small animal clinic and pet resort. So
yeah.
There were a few surprises along the way, but I really enjoy, that's one of the things I love about this career is you can make those changes. You can start in one place and find that it doesn't fit your lifestyle for whatever reason anymore, and you still have options. And that's, so many people don't have that choice. So I think it's a blessing.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think a lot of times talking to students, and you probably talk to a lot of students, and I know I do too, but they think that that's all they can do. If they want to work with animals, they have to be in veterinary medicine and go to vet school, take on that debt load. Yeah. But there are other things that you can do. And I know that you have a hospital manager, and I was a hospital manager for 23 years. So the career, and my degree is animal science. So I was a horse girl. That was my goal in life, was to be a horse vet. But there's a lot in the profession, and people kind of feel like they're stuck. And that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is getting unstuck. So is there, did you go? Obviously I know you have sheep. So did you go into food animal medicine? Did you practice food animal medicine?
I did. And I think a lot of my story too speaks to, maybe not so much anymore, but the role of women and young women as veterinarians. So I graduated in the early 2000s, and, we could talk lots of stories about are you the doctor, at that time wearing the white coat to try to make yourself be presentable. And I'm probably going to go astray from your question a little bit, but all the memories are coming rushing back. So I interviewed at a practice. I wanted to come closer to home, to Pennsylvania. I was newly married. And I interviewed at a practice that was mixed animal, strongly dairy, out of a house in the practice owner's father's home. And they hired me as a new grad to open the brand new $1 million small animal clinic. And they thought that they would only see appointments 2 hours in the evenings. So within 1 month of graduation, I was manning that as a foodie by myself all day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
And, roll with the punches, know where your resources and your tools are. Vin is still my best friend. But then that landed me doing the emergency large animal work on the weekends without building that relationship.
Yeah.
And that was challenging. Speaking about horses, I am not a horse girl. And I can still feel my heart the day I was in a stall with a horse that seizured. And that was the day that I said, I am done doing horses. This is not smart.
It's a lot of power in a very hinky attitude for the most time, because they're just they're scared of everything and powerful enough to do something about it. And one of the things might happen to be you. So when I was managing hospitals, my last practice was 11 veterinarians, and 4 of those were large animal. And it was fun for me to go out and ride in trucks and go to, there was actually only 1 dairy left in the county where I was, and 1 or 2 beef cattle producers, some smaller farms, but lots of horses, because it was sort of like that Virginia, North Carolina horse farm area. And so my vets would go out to these trainer barns and vaccinate, 200 head of horses. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing to do, is to just do that all day long. And then I watched one of them, a horse fell into a well, an old well. And I watched one of them crawl into that well, straddle this horse, kind of tranquilize it enough to where it wasn't going crazy, put a strap under its belly, and then get a backhoe to kind of pull it up out of this hole. And I thought, holy cow, these people are just brave. I mean, they just are brave.
Yeah.
To do what they do. And so I was glad that I didn't pursue large animal medicine. I looked at that and went, I was right. I was right.
Good choice, Debbie. Good choice.
Yes. But I totally get it. I was listening to your podcast earlier, your podcast, and you were talking about COVID, and I think the title of it, Yes, This Sucks. And it really does. But one of the things that we are laughing about is that the clients are not in the building, and sometimes it does make life easier because you're not doing face-to-face stuff with the clients. But when you got ready to do small animal practice, I mean, obviously, and I think this is a question I'll ask you, because right now they're talking about like changing the veterinary curriculum, and you focus, on a track, and you're a large animal vet, or you're a food animal vet, or you're a small animal vet. And looking at your career, do you think that that is a wise thing for the schools to do, or does it limit you?
So I went to Virginia, Maryland, so go Hokies. And we were one of the first that we tracked when I was there. And that was, of course, a question then as well. And my husband said to me the other day, what if you had to take boards again? And I said, I don't think anybody could pass it a year out after vet school, because you just dump that information. But I truly believe that having the knowledge, the foundation of practical knowledge that goes across species is really important. Gosh, I'd love to blow it up and do it like they do in Europe, not spend so much time in college and focus more in vet school. But I think it would be a shame to limit ourselves, because you spend your whole, and then there are a lot of people who know from the beginning, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. I'm from the age of 5, but not everybody does. And you spend your whole life with this focus of getting into vet school, and then you get there, and then you still can do the focus. I've got to pass all the tests. I got to get to boards. But then there's this huge, like, what's next? And I think so many of us, I'm still that driven. Like, that's one of the things that's changed for me with COVID, because I'm very much a like, what's the next thing driven person. And I think if we limit the vet school curriculum to, I know a lot of people I've mentored have been really interested in exotics. Well, what if you get out and you decide that you want to move to Minnesota and there aren't any exotic practices, or there isn't enough clientele to support that? Then you're so much more limited.
Yeah, I agree with you. And people who have pets have a multitude of pets. And I can remember in the mixed animal practice, I created a new client form, and typically it says, list the name of your pets. But we also said list the name of all the animals you own, because if you have horses or sheep or cattle, your dog is going to go out and eat something that it shouldn't, or get kicked by something large. And by having that knowledge, even if you didn't treat it, you'd at least know it.
Yeah.
But that they're going to ask you a question, right? They're going to ask you a question across all species. And
heck, they ask us about people.
Really?
You got to be ready.
Yeah. How many clients have you had pull up their shirt and say, hey, Doc, how about this, whatever this is? Yeah. They will do that to you. And you're like, oh, we don't practice human medicine here. Sorry. Keep that to yourself and go to
Put it away.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, I think that's a really valid point, is that I understand the curriculum is packed. And obviously I haven't gone to vet school, but one of the things I've been trying to do with NC State, and until COVID hit, we were on track to do this, was in undergrad in the animal science program in pre-vet, is to have a practice management track where they could get a certificate in practice management. Because if you think about it, any large university has accounting and marketing and human resources and operations. and they were all there already. All we had to do was pull the electives together. And we did that without it costing the students any more money because it was completely elective. But my goal for it was, okay, you have 1,000 students. This was at state, 1,000 students, and 100 of them will get into vet school. So what happens to the other 900? And the question was answered with, we don't really know. And I said, well, you're supposed to be prepping these people for their career. Let us prep them truly for a career. They could be managers with all the corporate, y'all get that out in a minute, all the new corporates coming in. They're looking for supervisors, regional supervisors, district managers, all those positions, and they're really well-paid positions. If you don't get in vet school, why couldn't you go manage and still be in this profession? Mm-hmm. But then if you do get into school, wouldn't you have loved to have had that background as a practice owner before you got into the experiment of a practice? And then you also would have the knowledge of the human resources, and if professors were being inappropriate, you would know how to report that appropriately, or what was right and what was wrong, and then how to market yourself. Mm-hmm. As you went out into the job market, you could market yourself. And you have a huge student loan debt, so you could have some accounting, and you could budget. You could create a budget for yourself. So I thought all these things were just a win-win all across the board. And we were, as I said, on track to get it done completely through virtual campus. But we kind of had to do a lot of other virtual things, before, and maybe we'll get back to it. I think it's a good idea. We'll still get back to it. Yeah. So when you were working through this process of, moving from your goal of being food animal into ending up over into small animal, and then building a fear-free practice from the ground up, tell me kind of how you were making these decisions and what your thought processes were. Because you said I'm the girl who's like, what's the next thing, right?
That's definitely me. I'll probably be, 1 foot in the grave and be like, what's next? So the story goes, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about positive cultures and supporting support staff, is because I have worked all of the different positions in a practice, but I also have experienced a lot of different types of cultures and practice style. So I'm proud to say I've worked at many more than one practice, both as a support staff and as a doctor. And I think that makes me a better doctor and owner. And so mixed animal practice, I decided I was done with those horses and I was going to move on. And long story very short, my practice owner won me back with the promise of more money, less emergency, and only small animal. So I stayed there, kind of in a different role for a while. And there's a repeating pattern in my story with practice owners who don't enjoy confrontation. And the first practice owner that I worked for, I will tell you, I learned from everybody that I worked for. Mm-hmm. But he was out in the field, and how many of us have worked at a practice where there are people who stir the pot, and I watched the pot be stirred many times, and eventually I was the one in the pot. And I remember him because I was supposed to be in a management style role, and I still remember him saying, I can't take your word for it because I don't know which person's side to trust. And right away I thought, I'm not sure I want to work in a place where I can't have a trusting relationship with my owner. So at that point, I was pregnant, and I just decided that the best thing for me was to gracefully bow out after my first baby, which was a blessing because I went part-time at my next job. And that job, I really took as I knew my husband would be looking to move. So it was just let's just enjoy veterinary medicine, enjoy being a mom, learn everything I can. I'm still in contact with that practice. It was a good building step. But I honestly think that I was more relaxed there because I wasn't so invested. So many of us think, maybe this has changed, but in my generation, so many of us felt like, you've got to become a partner. You've got to become a practice owner. You haven't completed the cycle if you haven't. And at the second job, I knew that wasn't going to be the case because I was going to be leaving. So I could just enjoy and be. And then we moved, And I found another practice that I thought was going to be the one. And it was a multi-practice setup with, at that time, joint owners. And like so many stories change, one owner retired, sold it out to the other. Long drawn out story, but I really thought that that was my practice. And I thought that I was going to be there. When I interviewed, the original owner took us out, my husband and I, out to dinner. We had conversations about what partnership would look like. He knew very well that that was what I was interested in. And at that point, he was too, with exit strategy. But he needed to speed it up because of some life situations. And he left the practice and sold it completely to the junior partner. And the junior partner, in having conversations with me about other doctors, said to me, and I think this is important to say because it motivated me, and I'm not here to throw rocks at him because I, again, learned from everybody that I worked with, but he literally looked at me in the eye and he said, no matter if I ever take another partner on, I will always be the king of this practice. And that started the wheels for me. And I went, again, to me, teamwork is the bottom line. It's not the doctors against the staff. It's not front desk against the nurses. It's not Kingpin and his junior partners. So at that point, that was a big red flag for me. But I had moved. We loved the area. What was I going to do? And I was like, you know what? I need to do something different. The clients matter. My why is because people matter. You know, clients matter. The team members matter. It's time for me to do something different. Okay, how do I do that? Because I hadn't planned at all to ever buy a practice of my own or start one. And if you listen along the way to the whispers, you know where you're supposed to be. And a few years prior, I had randomly come upon an advertisement for the RV, the mobile veterinary units. I had a LaBoy. And that just kind of, honestly, I was at a Matchbox 20 concert, which is my favorite ever. And it just kind of like came in my ears, like, go ahead and do this thing. So within 6 weeks of deciding to leave that practice, I had a LaBoy mobile unit and I had my own house call practice. And I did the things I loved. Like I went to homes where older people couldn't get out with their cats or they couldn't get them. We do euthanasias in the homes. And it was just me and I guess we would call it an assistant, kind of a jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. And I just got to really spend time getting to know how to treat people, how to treat animals in the way that they wanted to be treated. And then it just blossomed from there. Like, just the more you listen, the more you learn, the more successful you become.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with you. I love what you said. You said, listen to the universe, because I am a huge believer in that if you are attuned to what the surroundings bring you, the right people appear in your path at the right time in your life.
Absolutely.
And the pieces will fall into place if you're paying attention, and if you're not afraid. Because I think that's one of the other things that I see that holds people back so much, is that they're locked in fear. Mm-hmm. And Coach, you and I, like, we talk about fear a lot in our world, but it's, not just fear for the animals, but I think a lot of the things that we learn in Fear Free about how fear affects animals is also very similar to the way fear affects humans. And in our well-being, we are telling ourselves a false narrative that we can't, when in truth we can. We just have to be willing to fail. Mm-hmm. And failing is just learning. So there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, and there's nothing wrong with failing. One of the things that you said that struck me, that you said, your boss said, I'm the kingpin, or the is I took a job and the practice owner said, I just want you to know it's all about me. And I'm like,
okay. We're not all that way, I promise.
What have I done? Like, what have I done here? Because it's not about you. It's about the people. It's about the team, and it's about, the clients. And The animals are probably like third on the list because the other people are the decision makers, and the animals are just going to kind of go along with whatever happens to play out with the humans in the world. So if we do the humans right, then we get to treat the animals right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a story that we really need to press young veterinarians to understand, because I know that you have heard as many times as I have over the years, oh, I went into vet medicine because I don't like people.
Right.
But I love people and they fascinate me. And I think that it is one of the reasons that, my career has been successful and your career has been successful, is because we genuinely do enjoy the people in our world and making them happy and feel safe and have comfort, and offering those things to them, and being that educator. Because I think that's one of the biggest parts of veterinary medicine, is we have to understand that we're teachers every day, all day long. We're teaching people how to be good pet owners, and they're really willing to listen, but they're not willing to listen when you come at them from this authoritarian, talking down, talking over their head attitude. Instead, as a partnership with them, then absolutely will listen to you. The first practice I managed, we had great compliance in our hospital. It's actually how I got started as a speaker, because our preventative care had a 90% compliance rate. And people said, can you go teach other people how to do that? I went, yeah. But I'll warn you that what happens is you spend your days treating old fat dogs and renal failure cats, because they don't get into any other kind of trouble.
So true.
Which is good.
True.
It's really what you want to happen in practice, is you want animals to be really healthy and live to be old, fat dogs with arthritis and renal cats that are 19 years old coming into your practice.
Practice goals by Debbie. I love it.
Exactly. Have old, fat, healthy animals that live to be 20. That's what you want. So what was your greatest challenge in gathering like all the resources, the information, picking out cages, colors?
Oh no, that's the fun stuff. Sign me up to do that any day of the week. I love that. Well, and it's kind of like pregnancy. The farther away you get from it, the less you remember the hard parts. That being said, 2 children is plenty for me. So I designed the practice, and I was very, very hands-on in design. Loved doing that. Worked with a local architect, and I designed it, and we built it while I was the only doctor working in my mobile house call practice. So that was certainly challenging. I had a lot of blessings, a lot of family support, and some of my favorite pictures. Our lobby is sort of spa-like, living room-like, and family members and friends did like tiling and put up wainscoting, and we had a lot of good times like that. But the biggest challenge for sure is staffing, which that's everybody's challenge. But one of the consultants had said to me, don't do boarding. Boarding's everybody's headache. And of course, it'll be fine for me. I got this. But what I wasn't aware of, or maybe I just didn't get the magnitude of it, was to staff boarding to provide the level of care that we wanted to provide, the low staff to pet ratio and things like that. I could not pay what I felt was fair. And to get the quality of staff members I needed, they could easily make more money, unfortunately, working in a warehouse. And it's not because I didn't want to pay them that. It's just I couldn't. Nobody's going to pay that kind of money to board their pet. So that was really, and honestly, we don't do the overnight boarding anymore. And I can't say I miss it. So that was one of those, okay, somebody else is right about that. But definitely staffing. And also impatience. Like as a veterinarian, I very much want the pet to be better the next day. Like I want the answer, I want the pet to be better the next day. And I certainly wanted to open the practice and have all the pieces in place and ready to go. And, I needed to be patient with that. But boy, once you use your core values and find the staff that fits, it's just so awesome. Yeah. So awesome.
So Tracy, now I have to ask you, what are your core values for your practice?
So we just did a rehaul. I love to speak on core values, you know that. And we did a rehaul. We actually call ourselves, so my practice is Healing Paws Veterinary Care. So we say HPVC. And we say right now that we're in HPVC 2.0 because I literally, we hit burnout during the summer with COVID, like so many. And as a small practice, we had actually gone from 3 doctors to myself. So a lot of big changes. And it was like, this is, it's kind of lost in the, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to get out of it? And the answer was use this to rise, use this as a foundation. So I took it as an opportunity to really assess my why, the practice why, and our core values. And we always do that as a team, the core values discussion. So I'm going to remember them because we talk about them so frequently here. We use the word tiger pie. So TIGERPI. I have a cute little tiger cat on a slice of pie. So teamwork, integrity, grace, excellence, responsibility, positivity, and initiative.
I
And
love
our
those.
promise is thorough and kind care to pets and owners alike. And our purpose is to improve the quality of life for pets and people who love them. This is really important to me to include the team members, not just the pet owners. And
Hmm.
that's the people who love pets.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. And sometimes for me, it's the foundation of what I do as a consultant is to come in and say we have to build core values. And the practice owners sometimes are like, well, we don't need to do that. But
We
it's
do.
the foundation of your building. And if you don't pour the good foundation, then the rest of the time you struggle because you've got to figure out hiring people to the core values. And
Mhm.
once you do, it's like you said, it makes hiring easy and it makes the culture build itself
Yeah.
because everybody thinks the same way. Everybody's on the same path and everybody believes what you believe and and they want to live in integrity. And then it's very easy to discipline if somebody came in and said, "Hey, I'm the kingpin here."
Right.
Is that living your core values? No, I don't think so because we're a team. And so they immediately are able to be disciplined on core values because this is not how we act here. This is
Mhm.
not how we act. And it is incredibly important that you know why you walk in your building every day
Yeah.
and that everybody believes what you believe. And I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek and the golden circles and start with why. Um, and knowing why you get out of bed every morning. Some
Mhm.
some days you don't want to, some days you really don't.
Yeah.
And there was many times that I was on airplane and I thought, oh, it sure would be nice to stay here in 80 degrees
Mm.
instead of flying to where it's 20 to teach. But I always believed that what I was doing was helping the veterinary teams live better lives, that they were learning communication skills that were going to make their lives better in practice every single day. And it's all the things I wish people had told me when I was young, right? That,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I knew all this stuff. When I was 20, I would have been so much further along in my life and communicating with other people. And sometimes I'll even tell stories of things that I said to clients and say, don't do this. I did it when I was 30. I wouldn't do it today, but I did it when I was 30. Um, so how's that work for you? Your practice up until the time of COVID was
Mhm.
just moving along. I think the first time we met, we were at Andy Rourke's Getting Shit Done conference. And I don't think you'd moved into your building at that time. I think you were
Probably just working on it. I feel like
just
that
on
was a
the edge of it.
fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has it worked? Core values were working very well before as well. And there are a couple things like I got to tell Debbie all these things in response to what you're talking to, but it works really well for me. And the thing that I like the most, as far as revamping with COVID, we just all needed a new inspiration, like a new reason to get up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the team, when you do these activities and you come together as a team, there are a lot of practices where management will throw the core values at the team. And that doesn't mean anything for lots of reasons, probably way more than we have time to talk about. But when the team realizes that you value them so much that you want their input, they grab it and they buy in. And having a bought in team is what you need, especially in times of change, right? Because if you're not bought in and you're going through all these struggles of not another protocol, or I got to go back to washing this, the buy-in is really big with that. I did want to talk about two things, and I'm writing them both down so that I don't forget why. So the first was, I think it's important too to know with core values, you mentioned about how to discipline with them, but I really use them to teach. So we do a lot of win opportunities teaching style. So we want the whole team to hear, let me see if I can think of an example. Well, this morning we were, hey, let's all get together and talk about how the morning went. And we focused on our promise, which goes along with core values. And everybody said, oh, well, we got done on time. Okay, but were we thorough and kind with every pet? And then somebody said, well, we were kind with everyone, but were we thorough? You know, if you have those things that they can keep reverting back to, or when we write, we have a shout out board, which is one of my favorite things, the whole clinic. So, you know, anybody, for those listening don't know, you just index cards, post-its, whatever cute thing you want to do. And something good happens, you write it up, you plaster it so everybody can see. We actually started a trend when we did, this is new that I started the new core values. That week, every shout out I wrote, I put one of the core values in it, like how it, you know, Bree showed initiative by going and getting the food bag out of the car, something like that. It's caught on like fire. Like I don't have to do it anymore. They all are putting their core values in their shout outs, which again does buy in. And then you do the teaching and you can say, okay, here's this situation. It was a good situation. What core values did it express? And they're always going to give you more than one. Okay, we didn't meet success in this situation. What core value do we not express that happened? And it helps them understand what core values are, but it also just makes it sink in, you know, rather than again, shame on you moment. Going, oh yeah, that didn't fit with me saying I'm going to be positive. I need to do that differently. So I love it for that. The other thing I wanted to say, because I was thinking about your bend, and we were talking about how important it is to have the why. It's really important to know your personal why. And for people listening who don't own the practice or don't manage, even the managers, if you don't own the practice, know your own why, and don't be ashamed if it doesn't match. Get out. Because you can't change the why of where you are. And there's nothing wrong with either your why or their why. You know, there, for instance, let's say there are practices that maybe are low cost, high volume vaccination practices. That is a niche that needs served. Huzzah. But that may not be you want to be fear-free and offer coffee and tea and spend 40 minutes with Mrs. Smith. Good for you. You just don't mesh. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think so many of us we want to prove that we can do anything. And so we're to stay and knuckle down and work hard with our head down all day long. And then we're going to burn out. We're going to leave a profession early and we're not going to serve anybody. If you work to find your why, you can be happy and stay in the profession longer and serve even more.
Exactly. Well, it has to do, as far as the practice goes, particularly, is knowing your brand. And I think a lot of times in veterinary medicine, I find practices that want to be all things to all people. And they're afraid to say, no, I'm going to see, you know, this client who fusses about, you know, spending 10 cents. And yes, I'm going to serve this one who's willing to spend $10,000. And you can serve both of those, but I don't think you can serve them well because there's an inconsistency to how do you approach both of those clients. And if you want to serve the lower cost, higher volume, let's serve as many animals as we can and do as much practical medicine as possible for those animals, then know that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But if I know I am a self-confessed medicine snob. I grew up in AHA accredited hospitals. I managed them for 23 years. And I confess this readily because I had a pet that, and actually, this was a friend of mine. She was a veterinarian 1 mile from my house, but she was not thorough enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove 20 miles to a veterinarian that I laugh and say I had raised because I hired him right out of vet school. And that was the quality of medicine that I wanted for my pets. So people who want what they want are willing to go where they can find it. And people who are are not looking for what you sell or looking for what you offer are never going to be happy, and they're never going to make you happy because you're always fighting against each other. Each of your goals is different because you can't want to practice fear-free high-end medicine with somebody who says, no, just get it done.
Yep.
And get me out of here because all I care about is getting it done. And the opposite is true. There's some people who don't have the patience for fear-free. Mm-hmm. And I think some people are. I actually heard somebody say that they think that Marty Becker says he was going to blackmail or the entire profession into doing it. I personally don't have a problem with that. However, I just say this, if you don't have to do fear-free, but do something to
absolutely.
acknowledge the fear of these animals and know that you don't have to dog wrestle anymore if you start out right, and kind of raise these animals into your practice. I work with a hospital that has been Sophia Yen Gold certified and fear-free certified for 14 years. And the awesome. Animals drag their owners into the practice. And that is the goal because, if you think about, we serve our team members and our team members love animals. There's nothing more gratifying than have the owner go, well, he'd rather be here than at home.
Oh, yeah.
And have them drag you into the hospital and then greet your staff with such joy rather than backing into the corner, snarling and raising their hackles when these people who have dedicated their lives to animals approach. So I think it hurts your heart a little bit to have to deal with animals who are fearful or who've had such bad experiences in the past that they look at you as the devil rather than being excited to see you when you've completely change your approach to how you help them and how they come in. Now, I know that you and I, like I said, we met at one of Andy's I started to say conferences.
I'm not sure I hear him sing.
Oh boy. Yeah. It goes back to that Matchbox 20 thing. But it really is kind of a combination of concert, comedy, and
fair.
convention. How did networking help you when you were making all these decisions and, setting up for values and all the things all this groundwork that you laid?
All the things. If you had asked me about networking, probably, let's see, I've had my own practice for 6-7 years now, counting the house call. If you had asked me 9 years ago, I would have said, no, thank you. Go to the conferences, don't talk to anybody but yourself, kind of in the and now I'm like, yes. For two different reasons. Sharing stories is so important to me because when you find out that someone else has experienced what you have in some way, it validates you and it makes you know that you're not necessarily a failure. You're going through one of those lessons. Or sometimes, gosh, I love going to conferences and being like, yeah, we do that already. How cool is that? Yeah, no joke. Like, it just feels good. And you need a sense of confidence. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. So back to networking, the thing to me, especially starting my own practice, that was so important is to realize, know what you know how to do and know what you don't. And by golly, don't try to figure it out on the fly because you're going to just end up nowhere, quite frankly. And I've been blessed. Like I have an acquaintance from church. We served on leadership council at church together, and she's a total Excel junkie. Like, we're talking, when the church moved, she had hundreds of pages of Excel spreadsheets. She's now a receptionist for me and my bookkeeper and on my leadership team, and she's amazing. That's not my gig. Reaching out and finding an accountant who understands veterinary medicine and your state rules, and finding someone who knows the best way to put the plumbing in. Like, why do I need to learn that? So in the building the practice, that was really important. But then in building the teams, finding a group of people who speaks the language like you do, a tribe. So it might be the veterinary practice manager group. It might be the Teams Living Well Facebook group. It might be Uncharted. Finding a tribe that speaks your language where you can be safe to ask the question. We should be safe everywhere, but we aren't necessarily, especially as managers and practice owners. Like, you don't want to go out on the floor and say, I never had a client angry about this before. Is this legal? That doesn't make you a good leader. So you need to find that team. And I think there are so many things about the social media world that I could talk to you about right now that I'm not happy about. But to me, the virtual connections, the benefit of it is just the networking. One of my best friends now lives in Canada, and I met her through Uncharted. And that woman checks on me. She can tell literally by a 1-sentence text what my day is like. And she also steps up to the plate. So to me, you're a fool not to take advantage of networking now, because you can just, I don't know, it just makes your life more full.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, one of the things I try to do is since I'm not in practices every day, is to find out what life is like in practice, and talking to those manager groups, or listening to, the different groups out there, and kind of understanding their pain points and seeing where there's a consistent problem, and saying, what, I have a solution for that. Because I'm not in the trenches. I am not buried up to my elbows in alligators like you are. Let me find something that helps you, and I can put that out there into the world. And so that's what I've been able to do with those groups, and keeping your ear to the ground and keeping you current about what's happening out there in practice. So, Tracy, I don't want to run over your time because I know you've been working all day, but tell me what advice you would give to someone who's facing a big career decision, a big change in life, and how they can move through that.
So you had mentioned that this might be a question, and my initial thought was going to be, don't do it during a pandemic. Because, what does the pandemic do to your mindset? And then I went, why not? I think my advice is just, why not? What is holding you back?
Yeah.
And I always say, this is something I preach for any decision you make or any action you take, is, does it hurt or does it help? So if you're trying to make that career choice and you're going, but I could stay here. I'm worried about, I think leaving your clients is one of the most common for technicians and owners and veterinarians alike. Is it going to help your clients to stay? Is it going to help you if you stay? Is it going to hurt you if you stay? It probably won't hurt them if you stay, unless it hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at if it's going to hurt, if it's going to help, and then just why not? Yeah. If there's a good answer to why not, then don't do it.
Yeah.
But chances are.
Well, I know that you and I we talk a lot about, burnout and the things that are happening in veterinary medicine, but so much of that we actually allow, we don't set boundaries. Yes. And I said, if we're burning the candle at both ends, it's because we lit it on fire. So many times. And so it's setting those good boundaries and being able to say, I'd love to do that for you, but I just cannot do that today. I just don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the manpower. I don't have the energy to do a good job for you. And so it's better if you go somewhere else or do something else or get somebody else to do those kind of things. And for some reason, we feel like we can't do that. And I think that, when I was younger, and I was managing, and I would be there till 9 and 10 o'clock at night by myself, be the only person in the building doing stuff. And I look back on there and said, I spent all that time and all that effort in a business that I could never own, because in where I was, you could not be a practice owner if you were not a manager. And what if I had spent that time and effort as I do now in my own business.
Right.
Where, how successful would that have been, and if I had put that time and effort in it? But I don't regret any of it, because it's like you said, you learn from everything, and
Mhm.
you learn from everyone. If you're constantly open to be a learner, I think you learn, even if you don't agree with somebody, you can still learn, and then
Oh,
you
for
can
sure.
maybe develop a counter argument in your head to say, this is why I wouldn't do it that way, or why I don't
Mhm.
think that's appropriate. So you're better prepared next time if that situation comes up. Um, any final words of wisdom? I do want you to talk just a smidge about your podcast, and about, kind of the theme of that podcast, and how it's designed to help veterinarians and the teams.
Absolutely, sure. So the podcast is called Vet Med After Hours, and we came up with that name because it's really important to us that you have an after hours. You're not just vet med. Vet med is what you do, not who you are. And we wanted a podcast that, like I talked about earlier, this sharing the stories and hearing a bit of yourself somewhere else. So it is for all vet professionals. You'll hear us talk to client care team members, to practice managers, to people from Whisker Cloud and IT services. It's just super fun to hear everybody's story. But this season, we are focused on our Vet You Matter campaign, which hashtag Vet You Matter, follow it, everybody. We wanted to stop feeling helpless about suicide prevention in our industry and start doing something. And we're not mental health professionals. So we created the campaign. There's a design that I'm really proud of, because it has the butterfly as a symbol of hope. It has the veterinary caduceus, and that has a semicolon made with a paw print. So just really something to open up the conversation. If you wear that, somebody's going to say, what's that about? What's that design? But our current season, season 4, is focused on the ask for help. And Debbie, I am just blown away. Every single person we interview, from, spoiler alert, Dave Nickel, to someone that nobody's ever heard of before, are coming to the table and talking to us about when they've asked for help. And they're all talking about using therapists and counselors and how it makes them a better person.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite quote so far is from Ross Henderson. Now, gosh, he's on a TV show. You think this guy has it together. And he said that no matter how healthy you are, therapy will make you better. And I thought, wow, like there's a tool just sitting right. All you have to do is talk. How many of us don't like to talk? All you have to do is talk, and you can be even better than you already are. So I'm really enjoying the season. And that leads me to what I wanted to leave the audience with. I've been saddened lately by the social media activity, particularly within our profession. And what saddens me about it is I think we've just, as a community, gotten to such a dark spot that we're not stopping to think and filter about what we're saying online.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to leave everybody with is remember that behind every post, behind every influencer, behind every mask is a person that matters. And behind your mask in the mirror is a person that matters, because you matter.
Yep. Yep. Well, I can't end it any better than that. So I want to say thank you so much. And we will have all your contact information at the end of the podcast available for people. And I do encourage them to listen to the After Hours podcast, because it is really interesting and entertaining at the same time.
With a little
And
bit of everything, for sure.
yeah. And that's, you just can't beat that. So thank you so much for being on The Bend and sharing your story, and also being out there for the veterinary profession, because you do make a difference and you are helping. And I appreciate it. We need it. We need all the help we can get. Hang in there. COVID will end at some point. It's gonna end, and we'll be all right. All right. Thank you again, Tracy, for coming on.
It was my honor. Thank you, Debbie. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Take care.
You too.